There is a block of stone in an old English garden. It sits on the grounds of Shugborough Hall in Staffordshire. And for over 250 years, it has held a secret. Carved into this monument below a marble copy of a famous painting are 10 letters. 10 mysterious letters that no one has ever been able to fully explain. D.O.U.O.S.V.A.V.V.M? What do they mean? Nobody knows for sure. But the most exciting theory, the one that has captured imaginations for decades, is that they are a clue. A clue left by a secret society. A clue that points the way to the resting place of the Holy Grail. It sounds like a movie plot, it sounds like something from a novel, but the monument is real. The inscription is real. And the world's best minds, from Charles Darwin to the codebreakers of Bletchley Park, have looked at those 10 letters and walked away stumped. The story starts not with a secret, but with a family. The Ansons. They owned Shugborough Hall for centuries. In the mid-1700s, a man named Thomas Anson inherited the estate. He was a man of culture and travel. His brother was George Anson, a famous admiral who had circumnavigated the globe. The brothers had money, status, and a taste for art. Thomas decided to transform the gardens at Shugborough. He filled them with follies and monuments, little Greek-style temples and arches. It was a fashion of the time for wealthy landowners. One of these monuments was the Shepherd's Monument. It was built sometime around 1748. It's an ornate stone arch, almost like a tomb's entrance set into a wall of rock. And in the center of it is a marble relief, a carving. This carving is the first major clue here. It's not an original work. It's a copy of a painting by the 17th century French artist Nicolas Poussin. The painting is called The Shepherds of Arcadia. This was a deliberate choice. Poussin was not just any artist. He was an artist surrounded by mystery. His work was full of classical themes, hidden geometry, and complex symbolism. He was a thinking person's painter. The painting itself shows 3 shepherds and a shepherdess in a pastoral, idealized landscape. They are gathered around a tomb. One of the shepherds traces a carved inscription on the tomb with his finger. The inscription reads, "Et in Arcadia ego." This Latin phrase is a puzzle in its own right. It translates to, "Even in Arcadia I am." The I is generally understood to be death. It's a memento mori. A reminder that even in a perfect, beautiful world, death is present. So Thomas Anson chooses this specific, somber, and mysterious painting to be the centerpiece of his new monument. He has it meticulously copied in marble, and then he adds something that wasn't on the original tomb in Poussin's painting. Below the relief, on a small stone plaque, he has 10 letters carved, 2 on the top line, 8 on the bottom. D.O. and then U.S.V.A.V.V.M. Why add this code to an already enigmatic scene? This is where the story splits into 2 paths. The simple path and the grand conspiratorial path. Let's start with the simple path. Maybe the letters are a personal message. An acrostic, a tribute from one person to another. This is the most widely accepted, sensible theory. The code could be a Latin phrase. One popular suggestion is Optime uxoris optime sororis viduis amentissimus vovit virtutibus magistri. It's a mouthful, but it translates to something like, a most loving widower dedicates this to the virtues of the best of wives, the best of sisters, from the master. This theory has some weight. George Anson's wife, Lady Elizabeth, died in 1760. She was a central figure in their social circle. Perhaps her grieving husband or her brother-in-law Thomas commissioned the inscription as a private memorial. A heartfelt message, hidden in plain sight. It's a very human explanation. It's about love, loss, and memory. The problem is it doesn't quite fit perfectly. The grammar is a little strange. And while it accounts for most of the letters, there are variations. No one has found a Latin phrase that uses those exact 10 letters, in that exact order, that makes perfect sense and feels definitively right. It remains a good guess, not a confirmed solution. Another simple theory is that it's a biblical reference. Someone once suggested the letters are a slightly coded reference to a line from the Bible. A line from the Gospel of John, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." In Latin, that's ego sum via et veritas et vita. It doesn't seem to fit the letters at all, but proponents of this idea suggest it's a more complex cipher. Still, no one has demonstrated how it works, so it remains just another idea on the pile. And then there's the most boring theory of all, that it's just a meaningless collection of letters. A whim, a private joke between the Anson brothers that no one else was ever meant to understand. Or even a mistake by the stonemason. This is possible, of course, but it feels unlikely. The monument was an expensive and deliberate piece of art. It seems improbable that they would allow a glaring, permanent error to be carved into it, or that they would go to so much trouble for a nonsensical joke. The care taken with the rest of the monument suggests the inscription was just as deliberate. So, the simple explanations are unsatisfying. They leave too many questions. This is where the other path begins. The path that leads to secret societies, forgotten kings, and the greatest treasure in Christendom. This is the Holy Grail theory. This theory exploded into public consciousness in 1982 with the publication of a book called The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail. The authors, Michael Bygant, Richard Lee, and Henry Lincoln, proposed a radical new history of Christianity. They argued that Jesus Christ had married Mary Magdalene and had children, that this bloodline, this sangral or royal blood, was the true Holy Grail, and that a secret society called the Priory of Sion had protected this bloodline for centuries, waiting for the day when the descendants of Christ could be restored to the thrones of Europe. According to this book, the Priory of Sion had a series of illustrious Grand Masters, and people like Leonardo da Vinci, Isaac Newton, and, crucially, Nicolas Poussin, the artist who painted the Shepherds of Arcadia. The book claims that Poussin knew the secret. He knew the location of the tomb of Mary Magdalene, or perhaps some other great treasure related to the bloodline, and he hid clues to this location in his paintings. His Shepherds of Arcadia was supposedly one of the most important. The painting, they argued, didn't depict a random place in Greece. It depicted a specific location in the south of France, near the village of Rennes-le-Château, another place famous for its own mystery involving a supposed hidden treasure. The link was made. If Poussin knew the secret of the Grail and he hid it in his painting, then a man like Thomas Anson, who deliberately copied that painting and added his own secret code, must have been in on the secret too. The Shugborough inscription, therefore, was not a memorial. It was a key, a cipher. A piece of a larger puzzle that pointed to the location of the Grail. This idea was electrifying. It connected a sleepy English garden to a grand, continent-spanning conspiracy. It turned Thomas Anson from a simple country gentleman into an initiate of a secret order, a guardian of an earth-shattering secret. What could the letters mean in this context? People went to work. They treated it like a serious code. Maybe it was an anagram, maybe it was a substitution cipher, or maybe it was something else entirely. One of the most persistent ideas is that the letters are a form of coordinates, a map reference. Researcher A.J. Morton, following this line of thinking, claimed the letters were a cipher that, when decoded, pointed to a specific location. He believed he had cracked it, but his solution was complex and never gained widespread acceptance. Another idea was that the letters refer to a phrase that would be understood only by other initiates. Something like Jesus as deity is not here, a heretical statement that the Priory of Sion would want to keep secret. But, again, this is pure speculation. It's fitting a story to the letters rather than letting the letters tell their own story. The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail theory was a bestseller. It was so compelling that it later formed the basis for Dan Brown's blockbuster novel, The Da Vinci Code. Suddenly, millions of people knew about the Priory of Sion, passing secrets, and the idea of a Jesus bloodline. And the little inscription at Shugborough Hall got a new lease on life. It was no longer just a local curiosity. It was a potential clue to one of the biggest mysteries in the world. But here's the part of the story that often gets left out of the exciting versions. The foundation of this entire Grail theory is shaky. Very shaky. The Priory of Sion, the secret society that supposedly guarded the bloodline, was not an ancient order. It was a hoax. It was invented in the 1950s by a Frenchman named Pierre Plantard. He was a con artist who wanted to create a fake noble lineage for himself, claiming he was a descendant of long-lost French kings. He and his friends forged a series of documents, the dossier secrets, and planted them in the French National Library. These documents laid out the entire history of the Priory and its famous Grand Masters. It was these forged documents that the authors of The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail discovered. They took them at face value and built their incredible theory upon them. The hoax has since been thoroughly debunked. There is no evidence that the Priory of Sion ever existed before the 1950s. There is no evidence that Leonardo da Vinci or Isaac Newton were its Grand Masters. And there is no evidence that Nicolas Poussin was hiding a secret about the Holy Grail in his paintings. So, does that mean the Grail theory is dead? That the inscription is definitely not a clue? Not necessarily. Just because the Priory of Sion was a modern hoax doesn't mean there weren't other secret societies at work in the 18th century. In fact, there were. Groups like the Freemasons were very popular among the educated gentry, the same class as Thomas and George Anson. These groups were fascinated by ancient wisdom, symbolism, and secret knowledge. They were interested in things like the Knights Templar, the medieval order of warrior monks who were, in some legends, the original guardians of the Holy Grail. The Knights Templar were brutally suppressed in the 14th century, but stories persisted that some knights escaped, taking their legendary treasure and secrets with them. Some believe that groups like the Freemasons were their spiritual successors. Could the Ansons have been part of such a group? It's possible. In that context, the Shugborough inscription could still be a code related to Templar knowledge or a hidden treasure, just not one connected to the fake Priory of Sion. The Powson painting itself adds fuel to this fire. Powson spent most of his career in Rome, a city of secrets and power. One of his patrons was a man named Cardinal Francesco Barberini. Some researchers have tried to link Barberini to secret societies. The theory goes that Powson learned something he shouldn't have. He encoded this secret in his work. He is famously quoted in a letter as saying of a certain secret, "It is something that even a king would give a great deal to know and that no one will ever discover." This tantalizing quote has been linked to everything from lost treasure to political secrets. When Thomas Anson commissioned the monument, he was part of a world where classical knowledge, philosophy, and a touch of secret society mystique were all intertwined. Creating a puzzle in his garden would have been perfectly in character for a man of his time and status. It was a way of showing off his intellect and his connection to the great mysteries of the classical world. The monument, with its reference to Powson and Arcadia, is already about hidden meanings. The inscription is just the most obvious layer of the puzzle. Over the years, the mystery has continued to draw people in. During World War II, a camp for German prisoners was located near Shugborough. Some have speculated that Nazi intelligence, famously interested in esoteric artifacts like the Grail, may have tried to decipher the inscription. There's no proof of this, but it adds another layer to the legend. More recently, the codebreakers who worked at Bletchley Park, the brilliant minds who cracked the German Enigma code, have reportedly taken a look at the inscription. They too were unable to offer a definitive solution. If they couldn't crack it, who could? This is what makes the Shugborough inscription so enduring. It's the perfect mystery. It has just enough information to be intriguing, but not enough to be solved. The letters are clear. The context is rich with potential meaning. The link to Powson, the talk of secret societies, the possibility of the Holy Grail, it's an irresistible combination. We are left with two very different worlds. In one world, a grieving man carves a coded tribute to his lost wife or sister. It's a personal, sad, and beautiful gesture. Its meaning is lost to us simply because the private context is gone. The family key to the cipher has disappeared with the passage of time. The secret is not grand, but it is real. In the other world, a member of an ancient brotherhood passes on a vital clue. Here, he embeds it in stone, linking it to the work of another initiate, Powson. It's a link in a chain stretching back centuries, a signpost on the road to a world-changing secret. It's a story of conspiracy, hidden knowledge, and a treasure that could rewrite history. Which world is the truth? Maybe neither. Maybe it's something else entirely, something no one has even thought of yet. Maybe the letters aren't Latin at all. Maybe they're a cipher based on numbers or musical notes or the positions of stars. People have tried all these avenues. None have yielded a result that everyone can agree on. The owners of Shugborough Hall, now the National Trust, receive suggestions from the public all the time. Everyone has a theory, but they've never officially endorsed one solution. The mystery is part of the appeal of the place. To solve it would be to diminish it. The question is more interesting than any possible answer. So, what is the secret of the inscription at Shugborough Hall? The secret, perhaps, is that it perfectly reflects our own desire for secrets. We want to believe that there is more to the world than meets the eye, that there are hidden patterns, forgotten truths, and great adventures waiting to be discovered just beneath the surface of ordinary life. We want to believe that a clue to the Holy Grail could be sitting in an English garden. The 10 letters, D.O.U.O.S.V.A.V.V.M, act as a mirror. A romantic sees a love letter. A conspiracist sees a master plan. A cynic sees a mistake. A classicist sees a Latin quote. The letters themselves remain silent. They have kept their counsel for more than 2.5 centuries. The stone is weathered now. Moss grows in the crevices of the letters. The shepherds in the marble relief are worn smooth by the English rain. But the puzzle remains as sharp as the day it was carved. It's a testament to the man who commissioned it, Thomas Anson. Whether he meant to create a lasting memorial to a loved one or a clue for a secret society, he succeeded in creating something else. He created a masterpiece of mystery, an invitation to wonder, an 8-letter, 10-character question mark that may never be erased. And that in itself is a kind of treasure. The truth is, we may never know. And that might be the whole point.